All right, so today we're diving deep into the world of Ratan Tata. And I'm guessing a lot of you probably know him from, the cars or the tea. But what we're going to look at today goes way beyond just those brands.
Yeah.
Our source material this time is actually a biographical sketch, and it's in Hindi.
Oh, wow.
And it really paints this picture of a leader who really had a big impact on India and how India sort of grew into the modern world and in ways that a lot of people in the West might not realize.
It's interesting how, his story really is intertwined with India's economic transformation.
Right.
He's not just a successful businessman, right? He's a symbol of India's rise on this global stage.
So let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
He was born in 1937 in Mumbai to the Parsi Tata family. Now, for those who maybe aren't familiar with the Parsi community in India, they're a really fascinating group.
Yes.
They're known for being very successful in business, but also known for their philanthropy.
Right. And that cultural background is so important, because it really speaks to the values that were probably instilled in him, from a very young age. And the source really makes a big deal about, his upbringing and especially the influence of his grandmother.
His grandmother, Navajbai Tata.
Yes.
Right. And, his parents divorced when he was only 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his grandmother that really kind of instilled in him those core values of simplicity and honesty and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just, a traditional upbringing. He studied architecture at Cornell.
Wow.
And then went on to get an advanced management degree from Harvard.
Interesting combination.
Yeah, so you've got this really unique blend of creativity and business savvy.
It's not the typical path, right? For someone who's, going to end up leading this massive company like the Tata Group.
Right. And he didn't just immediately go to the top.
Yeah, he didn't just waltz in there.
He started in 1962 on the shop floor at Tata Steel.
Yeah.
In Jamshedpur. Working
Working alongside the people that he would one day lead.
Right. And I'm curious, did the source mention anything about how people reacted to that?
Yeah, there's a certain humility to that.
Yeah.
A willingness to learn from the ground up.
Yeah.
And you don't really see that, in leaders who are just kind of groomed for the corner office.
Right.
From day one. So these early experiences, really shaped his leadership and gave him a deep understanding, I think, of the challenges that the workers were facing.
And then in 1971, he takes on the leadership of Nelco, their electronics company. And the source is careful to point out this wasn't a complete turnaround success story.
Right, it wasn't.
Right.
But even in, what some might see as a failure, there were valuable lessons learned there.
Yeah.
It really, I think, shows his resilience, his ability to adapt even when things don't go according to plan.
So all of these early experiences, both his successes and maybe we can call them learning opportunities, really kind of set the stage for what he would go on to do. Because in 1991, he becomes chairman of the entire Tata Group, this massive conglomerate with companies that were operating pretty independently. But he had this vision for how to bring them together, how to create synergy and to modernize.
And it's so interesting how this, coincides with what's going on in India at the time, with the liberalization of the economy. India is shedding these socialist policies, opening up to foreign investment. This was a pivotal moment for companies like Tata.
So talk about pressure.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get into some of the specifics of what he was able to achieve during this time. I'm curious, just for the listener, what's the one thing that he did that really jumps out to you as particularly significant?
Well, I think for me it has to be the Tata Indica, launching India's first truly indigenous car in 1998. That was a huge statement. It wasn't just a car.
It was national pride.
Yeah, exactly. On wheels. It was a symbol of India's, capabilities on a global stage. But it wasn't just about appealing to emotions either.
Right.
The source talks about how Tata would see, families crammed onto these scooters, risking their safety.
Yeah.
And he realized that a small, affordable car could be both safer and aspirational, tapping into this desire for upward mobility.
Right. So he was solving a real problem.
Yeah.
At the same time, he was, making this bold statement about India's capabilities.
Yeah.
And speaking of bold, let's talk about the Tata Nano.
Oh, the people's car.
The world's cheapest car.
It was bold for sure. But was it practical?
Well, that's a good question.
The source kind of hints at these internal debates within the Tata Group.
Oh, really?
About whether or not it was even feasible to make a car that was that inexpensive.
And, and the Nano's journey wasn't exactly smooth sailing.
No, it wasn't.
There were bumps along the way.
Yeah, there were challenges not just with production, but also with perception.
Yeah, the challenges weren't just about, building the car or safety concerns.
Right.
It was how people saw it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People saw this low price tag.
Right.
And they thought, well, it can't be good quality.
Right.
Even though, it was innovative.
Yeah. It's like they couldn't believe that something could be that cheap and still be good.
Right. And then there were the safety concerns, which, whether fair or not,
right,
really hurt the car's reputation.
So it was kind of this perfect storm of challenges, both internal and external.
Yeah.
But even in the nano struggles.
Yeah.
Are there lessons to be learned there?
I think so.
What do you think?
It shows how important it is to manage perceptions, and to make sure that people feel safe, using your product, and that you can actually deliver on your promises.
Right.
That the execution matches the vision.
And maybe, maybe it was a bit too ambitious.
It's possible.
Right, trying to build the world's cheapest car.
Yeah.
And still make sure it was high quality.
Yeah.
And safe.
Yeah, and profitable.
Right. Maybe that was asking too much.
Yeah, even for someone like Ratan Tata.
Right. Okay, so we've got the Indica, we've got the Nano.
Right.
But then there's this whole other side to him.
Yeah.
The global acquisitions.
A global acquisition.
Tetley Tea.
Yes.
Chorus Steel.
Huge.
Jaguar Land Rover.
Wow.
These were huge moves.
Very audacious.
And some people saw this as a sign that India had truly arrived.
Right.
It's a global economic force.
And I think those acquisitions were really strategic.
Yeah.
They diversified the Tata portfolio. They gave them access to new markets, new technologies, and I think they elevated their brand image.
Okay, so let's focus in on Jaguar Land Rover for a minute.
Okay.
Because that seemed particularly interesting.
It was.
What was it about that one that stood out to you?
Well, Jaguar Land Rover was really struggling at the time, and a lot of people questioned whether or not an Indian company could revive these very iconic British brands.
Yeah, because, you think about Jaguar Land Rover, you think about luxury.
Luxury heritage.
Yeah, tradition, craftsmanship.
Right. Could an Indian company really capture that essence?
It seemed like a big gamble.
It was a gamble.
So how did he pull it off?
Well, he understood the challenge.
Okay.
Instead of trying to impose, a new identity on these brands,
right,
he invested heavily in preserving their British heritage, their craftsmanship.
Yeah.
He saw the value in their legacy.
So he was buying more than just a company. He was buying into a story.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And he knew that that story needed to be respected.
And he brought in, fresh capital and resources and expertise.
Yeah.
But he also let the existing teams.
Yeah, he empowered them.
Do what they did best.
Exactly.
So it was this really interesting blend of Indian business acumen, but this deep respect for British craftsmanship.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating how he managed to navigate those cultural differences.
Yeah, it's like he was a cultural ambassador.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
As much as a business leader.
Yeah. He knew that these brands weren't just assets, they were cultural symbols.
Right.
And he treated them accordingly.
Okay, so we've got the successes, the challenges, the acquisitions. But what about the man himself?
Yeah.
What are the personal qualities that you think drove this incredible journey?
Well, one thing that really stands out in the source is his humility.
Okay.
Despite his wealth and influence, Ratan Tata is known for his simple lifestyle, his lack of pretense.
It's funny, the source doesn't mention if he at least splurges on some fancy tea since he owns Tetley.
Right.
It seems like he's allergic to extravagance.
Yeah, I mean, it's counterintuitive, right?
Yep.
Because, in today's world, success is often equated with, these ostentatious displays of wealth. But Tata's humility, it's genuine.
Yeah.
He really shuns the limelight. He prefers to keep a low profile. And he's known for being very approachable. Yeah. Regardless of, someone's status.
It makes you wonder if that down-to-earth nature played a role in his leadership.
I think so.
Do you think it made him more relatable?
Yeah, I think so.
More trustworthy?
Yeah.
In the eyes of his employees, his partner.
His employees, his partners, the public.
I think so. And those values that we talked about earlier, the simplicity, honesty, compassion.
Yeah.
They really shine through in everything he does.
They do.
So it's not just about business savvy.
Oh, it's about character.
It's about character.
And that character is on display in his actions, not just his words.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the Tata Trusts.
Yes.
This massive philanthropic arm of the Tata Group.
The trusts are really a testament to his belief that business success should be a force for good.
They're involved in so many different initiatives tackling poverty, improving healthcare, promoting education.
It's amazing.
It's hard to overstate their impact on Indian society.
Yeah, it's like his legacy is woven into the fabric of India.
Yeah.
Impacting millions of lives. And it all goes back to those values, that sense of responsibility to give back.
Right.
It's a really remarkable story.
Yeah, it is.
But we're not done yet.
We've only just scratched the surface.
We've only just scratched the surface, so stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to delve even deeper into the decisions, the motivations, and the values that shaped Ratan Tata's incredible journey.
I can't wait.
Me too.
To dive in.
All right, see you next time.
See you then. Welcome back to our deep dive into Ratan Tata.
We've seen how he came up through the ranks.
Yeah.
Led the Tata Group during really important time for India's economy, and made some pretty bold moves on the world stage. Yeah. But I want to kind of unpack some of those decisions a little bit more, and see what we can learn from them, both the successes and the learning experiences.
The learning experiences. You can tell a lot about a leader by how they handle those setbacks, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So let's go back to the Tata Indica for a minute. It was more than just a car. It was a symbol, for India.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting is how Tata approached it. He wasn't just trying to build any car.
Right.
He was trying to build the right car for India.
Yeah. The source really highlights how much time they spent studying the Indian consumer. Right. What did they need? What did they want? They knew that it had to be affordable, but it also had to be practical, fuel efficient.
Right.
And they weren't just copying what was being done in the West.
Right.
They're innovating for the Indian context.
And that attention to detail paid off.
It did.
The Indica was a massive success.
Yeah.
And it proved that India could compete on the world stage when it came to making vehicles.
Yeah.
But then you've got the Nano.
The Nano. Yeah.
Which is an even bolder project.
Yeah, that was a real moonshot.
Yeah.
He wanted to create a car so affordable that it would revolutionize transportation.
Yeah, the people's car.
The people's car, exactly. And it got a lot of attention.
Yeah, it did.
Around the world. But like we said, it ran into some trouble.
It did. It seems like the classic case of a really great idea.
Yeah.
To hit a wall.
Yeah.
So what happened? What went wrong?
Well, I think a few things. The price tag, while it was meant to be, the big selling point might have backfired.
Really?
Some people saw that low price and just assumed it was low quality.
Right.
Even though the engineering was really innovative.
It's like they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That something that cheap could be good.
Right, exactly. And then you had the safety concerns.
Right.
Which, really hurt the car's reputation.
Yeah, so it was kind of a combination of things.
Yeah. It was internal and external factors that all kind of came together.
But even in those struggles, I mean, are there lessons to be learned?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, I think it shows how important it is to manage expectations and perceptions and to address those safety concerns head on.
Yeah.
And just to make sure that you can actually do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
That, the execution matches the vision.
Yeah, and maybe it was just a little too ambitious.
It's possible.
Right? Trying to make the world's cheapest car, but still make it a good car.
Yeah.
And a safe car and, all of that.
It's a lot to ask.
Might be too much.
Even for Ratan Tata.
Right.
So
let's move on from the Nano for a sec.
Okay.
And talk about those global acquisitions.
Yeah.
Tetley Tea, Chorus Steel.
Yeah.
Jaguar Land Rover.
Huge.
Those were really bold moves.
They were.
And, some people saw that as a sign that India was really,
forced.
Stepping onto the world stage in a big way.
A global force, yeah.
So let's talk about Jaguar Land Rover in particular.
Okay.
What was it about that acquisition that really stood out to you?
Well, remember Jaguar Land Rover, they were struggling.
Yeah, they were.
At the time, and a lot of people wondered if an Indian company could really turn them around.
Yeah, because you think about Jaguar Land Rover and you think about luxury heritage.
Right.
Craftsmanship.
Could an Indian company really capture that?
That's the question.
It was a gamble.
It was a gamble.
So how did he do it?
He understood the challenge.
Okay.
And instead of trying to come in and, change everything, he invested in preserving that British heritage, that craftsmanship. He understood the value of that legacy.
So he was buying into a story.
He was.
Not just a company.
Exactly.
And he brought in new capital resources expertise.
Right.
But he also let the teams that were there keep doing what they were doing.
He empowered them. All right, so it was this really interesting blend of Indian business sense, but also this deep respect for British craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how he was able to kind of navigate that.
Those cultural differences.
It's like he was a cultural ambassador.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
As much as a business leader.
Yeah, he knew that these brands weren't just companies.
Right.
They were cultural symbols.
Right.
And he treated them that way.
Okay, so we've got the successes, we've got the challenges, the acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the man himself?
Yeah.
What kind of qualities do you think drove him?
Well, the source really emphasizes his humility.
Okay.
You know, he had all this wealth and all this power.
Yeah.
But he lived a very simple life.
Yeah.
No pretense.
Yeah, it's funny the source doesn't say if he at least, splurged on some nice tea.
Right.
Given that he owns Tetley.
Right.
You
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's like he's allergic to extravagance.
Well, because today we tend to think that success is about showing off your wealth.
Right.
But his humility, it was real.
Yeah.
He didn't want the spotlight. He liked to keep things low-key.
Yeah.
And he was known for being approachable no matter who you were.
Right.
Didn't matter.
And do you think that played a role in his leadership?
I do.
Do you think it made him more relatable?
Yeah, I think so.
To his employees and partners?
I think it made him more trustworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those values that we talked about, simplicity, honesty, and compassion,
yeah,
they really come through in everything he does.
They do.
So it's not just about being good at business.
It's about character.
It's about character.
Yeah. And you see that in his actions.
Right.
Not just his words.
Exactly. Which leads us to the Tata Trusts.
The Tata Trust, yeah.
This huge philanthropic arm of the Tata Group.
Yeah. It's a real testament to his belief that business should be a force for good.
Yeah.
They do so much to fight poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Improve healthcare, education.
It's hard to overstate their impact.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like his legacy is woven into the fabric of India.
It is.
Touching so many lives.
Yeah, millions of lives.
And it all goes back to those values, that sense of giving back.
Right.
It's a remarkable story.
It is.
But we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
There's more to uncover, so stay tuned for part 3.
Yes.
Where we're going to try to understand the heart and mind of this remarkable leader.
I'm excited.
Me too. All right, so welcome back. We've talked a lot about Ratan Tata, from his early days on the shop floor to, those big global moves he made. We've seen the successes, the challenges, and that commitment to doing business the right way. But now I kind of want to get to the man behind the legend.
Yeah.
Like, what makes Ratan Tata tick?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The source, while it focuses mostly on his public life, it does give us some glimpses into his personality.
And his passions. And one thing that really comes across is this kind of interesting mix of ambition and humility.
Yeah, we've talked about his simple lifestyle, his aversion to, being extravagant.
Right.
But how does that square with, his drive to build Tata into this global powerhouse?
I don't think it's a contradiction. I think it's actually a reflection of his values.
Okay.
Those values that were instilled in him early on, simplicity, honesty, compassion. For him, success isn't about just, making tons of money. It's about building something that's meaningful, that has a positive impact on society.
So it's ambition with a purpose.
Exactly.
He's not driven by ego.
Right.
But by a deeper sense of responsibility.
Exactly. And that responsibility, you see it extending beyond just the business world. I mean, think about the Tata Trusts.
Right.
They're not some kind of side project.
Right.
This is a core part of who he is.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, look, I'm a successful businessman, but that comes with an obligation to give back. And that's a pretty powerful message, I think. Especially in a world where, corporate social responsibility can sometimes feel like an afterthought.
It really can.
Like, oh, yeah, we should probably do something good, too.
Right. Right.
But with him, it's different.
It's baked in.
Yeah.
It's part of the DNA.
Yeah, and it's not just about writing checks either.
No, the source actually mentions how involved he is.
Really?
In these different initiatives. Like, he's hands-on.
Wow.
Really trying to solve these problems.
So he's not just, delegating this.
Yeah.
He's in there.
Yeah, he's using his influence.
Getting his hands dirty.
His resources.
Yeah. Where do you think that drive comes from?
It's hard to say for sure, but, maybe it goes back to his Parsi heritage.
Okay.
The Parsi community, they have a long history of philanthropy.
Right.
Of using their wealth to help others. It's almost like it's part of their culture.
Right. So it's kind of this combination of, his personal values.
Yeah.
The influence of his culture. and this belief that business can be a force for good.
Yeah, a powerful combination.
Yeah, it really is. And it's something that I think resonates with people of all ages.
I agree.
Even after he stepped down as chairman, he's still seen as a role model.
Yeah, especially for young entrepreneurs.
Right.
In India, they see him as this leader who embodies both ambition and integrity.
He's proof that you can be successful without compromising your values.
And that's quite a legacy.
Yeah, it really is. So I want to ask you, the listener, what part of Ratan Tata's story really speaks to you?
Yeah, is it his business savvy? His ability to adapt and thrive in this ever-changing world?
Or is it the commitment to his values, that belief that success should be about more than just the bottom line?
Yeah, because I think no matter what part of his story you connect with the most, there's a really important lesson there.
Right.
The power of vision, and integrity and doing what you believe in.
He's shown us that success isn't just about, profits and acquisition.
All right.
It's about making a positive impact.
Yeah, making the world a better place.
And that's a legacy worth celebrating.
It really is.
So that wraps up our deep dive into the extraordinary life of Ratan Tata.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.